Good afternoon, everybody. Excited to see we already have several people in and chatting. They've already been talking. Um, we are here in session 7 of TCCA. It's been a long day, but so far I don't see anybody getting too tired and tapping out. We all seem to be in it for the long haul and enjoying our sessions. We are joined by Elizabeth King from Flippin Good Tech, and she's going to tell you a great story about how someone chose to join us. This had to be at TCCA today, and that's why her co-presenter is not here. So, without any further chit chat from me, Elizabeth, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh. It's great to be with you guys today. Thank you for taking the time in the afternoon after lunch. That's always nap time. At least it is for my colleague, Daryl, who isn't here, but he has a really good reason, and I'll get to that in just one second. So like Josh said, I am the second half to the podcast and the name Flippin Good Tech. And my colleague, Daryl, and I host a podcast called Connect Ed Tech under the brand of Flippin Good Tech, and you can check us out at flippingoodtech.com. I think I was trying to take you to the website, but we're not going to go there yet. All right. So the name of the session is a flippin' awesome recipe for blended learning. And we put the tagline there because our mascot is a llama. We love llamas. Well, I do. Daryl just goes along with it to make me happy. But our llamas are kind of our signature mascot. And we put that in there so easy a llama can do it because blended learning is a huge, broad topic. And there's no way in 45 minutes we can cover it all or experience it all or even have a hands-on practice with it. But we hope to break it down into some small digestible chunks for you so that you can take something away from it and at least implement something into your classrooms when you go back to school. So let's go ahead and introduce who I am and tell you a little bit about my MIA partner, Daryl Legaspi. So my name's Elizabeth King, as we've already said, and you can follow me on Twitter at ElizabethKing88. I currently work for an awesome company called Fry Technology as a project management lead and doing the same type of stuff that you're seeing me do right now and working with teachers. And I used to work in the same school district as my colleague, Daryl, and his Twitter handle is EdTechLegaspi. You can follow him. He is a whole lot of fun, I can tell you. So follow us on Twitter. You can also follow us at Flippin Good Tech. So where is Daryl today? That's what everybody wants to know. It's kind of like that, where's Waldo kind of a thing. But Daryl has a really good excuse for not being here. He actually made a great grand appearance in our first 2 sessions this morning, and we had great fun. And let me just tell you where he is. Y'all want to know where he is. If you weren't in the morning sessions, you're like, well, where is Daryl? Daryl is at the hospital right now because his wife, who was due in 2 weeks, she went into labor and had her baby, Olivia, early. So she was born last night at about 9 o'clock, and they're both doing great. I teased Daryl about this picture when he sent it to me last night. I was like, oh my goodness, Sabrina looks beautiful. That's his wife. Like, she looks beautiful. You're the one who looks like you went into labor. He looked a little rough. But of course, I was just kidding. But we were so happy for them. And I know he wishes he could be here. But at the same time, great excuse, right? So congratulations to Daryl. If you can send him some love through Twitter, I know he would really, really love that. Okay, so I'm going to ask Josh or one of our moderators if they would to drop the link to the presentation today into the chat for anyone who would like to follow along. I will preface it by saying this. We're going to cover a lot of things today. So sometimes it's just better to sit back since this is being recorded and you will have access to the presentation to go back and review. Sometimes it's better to sit back and maybe take a few notes and kind of listen and digest the information versus trying to follow in another tab or whatever. We just want you to have an enjoyable experience and really feel like it is so easy a llama can do it. Okay? So without further ado, let's get into this. What I would like to know before we get too far is in the chat, and I'm trying to, I don't know if I can see it, But Josh, maybe you can monitor and throw something out there to me. I actually can see it. Love all the thank you for all of the shout outs to Daryl. If he's able to watch it on YouTube right now and through the stream, I know he'll appreciate all those congratulations. So thank you for that. So I would like to know in the chat, what is your tech tool go-to of choice? Like, which is the one, this technology tool has saved my life, especially since COVID, right? COVID has changed our world. It's flipped it upside down. We would like to know what tech tool has been your go-to tool. If you didn't have it, man, the whole world would probably fall apart. So if you could drop a few of those in the chat, and if you want to help me with that, Josh, maybe if you want, you can shout out a couple. But I'm seeing some ClassKick, Flipgrid, Google Slides. Thank you guys for dropping a few of those in. I saw Loom.
That's what Miss Salinas is here for. So
Oh, good. Okay.
I'll let her unmute and
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Salinas.
You're welcome.
Okay, so seeing a lot of a wide variety in the chat. Great. Okay, good. I love that you guys are throwing some extra tools and resources out there for each other through this chat. I mean, grab a hold of some. Some of those we'll mention today. Some of them we won't. But I think it's worth looking at that chat to see what else is there available for you. So thanks for sharing with the masses. So I have to tell you this, guys, start small. With this whole idea of blended learning and the world we find ourselves in, do not get overwhelmed thinking that you have to do everything. Certainly don't think you have to do everything I'm going to share with you today, because it's a lot, okay? So just kind of baby step into it and go at your own pace. Then if you have questions, you can always drop those in the chat too. So we basically want to accomplish 3 things today. We want to define what blended learning is, this great big concept. We want to talk about the purpose for blending the lessons in the first place. Why is it important? And then we'll kind of touch on some tools and strategies you can use in your classroom that you may or may not already be using to do this particular learning style. So let's start with the definition. A blended lesson combines online and on-site learning. Now, before COVID, this line right here would have been hard for me to sell. And it has been, honestly, hard in the past for me to sell to teachers, getting them to move from their comfort zone of the traditional style of lecture or style of teaching in the classroom with low tech or sometimes no tech, right? But now that COVID's happened, we realize that technology affords us with the ability to do things we could have never done before. So we are very thankful for it on most days. And some days we want to throw our computers out the window, right? Especially when our internet connection is not good. Also, if our students don't have the access that they need, that can be frustrating. But all in all, a blended lesson combining these 2 things, online and on-site learning, provides flexibility. It gives students some student control, some way to go at their own pace, to go back and review some concepts on their own. It gives variety. It offers, man, and the chat, you guys threw out so many different tools. And that's what we're talking about here. A variety of things, a variety of instructional content, and way for students to respond that's different than just lecturing. I really hope that no one in this group today lectures their class on Zoom or Google Meet or anything. I really hope that you don't. And if you have done that in the past, I want you to think about maybe trying something different with them. It's difficult to sit for 45 minutes listening to someone in a face-to-face environment, but doing it in a virtual environment is just, it's almost painful. But I hope that this won't seem like that to you now that I've said that. So I will throw some things in there that I think will wake you up in a minute. But also, I love this part, this last bullet. It combines tech and non-tech elements. When you're thinking about blending the learning environment, don't get so stuck in that mindset that everything you do and everything the student does has to be technology, because it doesn't. The same concept of student differentiation and appealing to the different modalities, the different learning styles of the students applies in a blended learning environment. We want to ensure that students can thrive and have some choice in the ways that they can demonstrate what they know. And sometimes that doesn't involve technology. Sometimes kids are very artistic and they can draw something. Well, how can they get it to you if you're doing a virtual remote situation? They could take a picture of it, right? And then upload it or email it to you as a picture. They could do lots of things. They can build things with their hands using what they have. So don't get stuck thinking everything virtual or remote has to be a tech thing, because it doesn't, and it shouldn't if we're doing it the right way. Okay? Technology should be purposeful when we choose to use it, and be really the best option. All right, so I'm sure that you guys have had some hurdles so far since COVID. So I'm going to ask you guys to work with me, since I don't have my counterpart here to kind of help me with the dialogue or the banter going back and forth. I'm going to ask you in the chat if you could just throw out some of the biggest challenges you've had since COVID or even before COVID with using technology with your students. What's been the hardest thing to overcome for you? Don't add them all at once. Don't. Do you see anything, Miss Salinas?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I think they're making lists for you.
They probably are. There probably are too many to count. So you guys can continue to think about that. Drop that in there. I think a lot of people could say the slow connections. That's it. I knew that was coming up. I knew the internet and the access to the technology was probably going to be
reliability, engagement,
internet going out,
parents,
student participation, student environment distracting.
That's a good one. Troubleshooting. They're not actually teaching because they're having to worry about teaching the technology.
Lack of students.
That's a tough one, because there are some things in this type of world that are in our control, right? We can control them. And then there are other things, like when the internet doesn't work, whether it's for you or for someone else, we cannot control. So what we have to do in this planning phase of blending our lessons is just think about the things we can control. So we've actually researched a lot on this, and we've found through research that there are 4 big things that teachers say inhibit them or impede them from really truly diving into a blended learning method of instruction and learning. And the number 1 is this: they have to change their thinking. There has to be a complete shift. It can't be, oh, this is an apples to apples situation, I can do it like I've always done it. You've got to really think differently. I've got to be purposeful about what I include in my lessons now. I can't just say I'm going from a face-to-face and I'm going to do everything I did face-to-face in an online or remote environment, and it's going to work like a charm. It doesn't always work that way. So you have to plan differently and change your thinking. The second one is usually the number 1 hurdle people mention, is they feel like it takes more time for them to plan their lessons this way. And in reality, the front part of this, the front planning, may take a little bit to kind of get in the groove of doing it and the habit of doing it. But once you do, it will become a time saver to you. Because what you'll see will happen is a lot of the responsibility for the learning is going to shift from you onto the students. And that's what you want to happen. You want the students to take charge, to be in control. And if not in the driver's seat, at least in the passenger seat. You don't want to be the taxi driver chauffeuring them around everywhere. You want to teach them to learn. And sometimes that's tough to do. You guys all said it in the chat a while ago, technology. Whether it's access to devices or it's access to the internet itself, sometimes that is harmful to us, and a lot of times it's out of our control. And then the last one is training. And I have to give you kudos and commend the TCCA conference, Aldine ISD, for putting this training on today. Y'all, I mean, I would love to see the chat blow up right now with kudos to TCCA and Aldine ISD for the remarkable way that they have organized this conference. It's amazingly smooth. I mean, from what I've heard and seen and experienced, it's gone really well. So training is key. And thanks to TCCA and other opportunities like that, we can find the support that we need. So here's where we're going to break stuff down. I told you guys this should be so easy, a llama can do it, right? So I'm going to try to make blended learning very concise for you into 3 big parts. 3 big parts, all right? So if you're taking notes, this might be a good thing to write down. 3 things to blend your lessons. Access. That's your first one. We'll talk about what that means in a second. The second one, content. You can equate content to instruction. You can equate access to platforms, like learning platforms. And then the third one, you probably can guess, is response, which can equate to learning. So you've got access to the information, the content is what the teacher is going to deliver, and the response is what the student's going to do with the content or the instruction. Okay, so 3 things. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first one. Access. If you didn't use an online platform before COVID, I bet you are now. And if you aren't yet using one, I highly encourage you to check one out, okay? Because even if your district does not have a paid version of any online learning management system, there are free versions of all of them. So I just highlighted 3 of them on the slide here. There's Schoology, Google Classroom, Seesaw. I know a lot of school districts use Canvas. Some of them use It's Learning. And there may be more, okay? So it just depends on where you are. But they all have a primary function, things that are similar to all of them. They are very good for communicating things out. They're kind of like a one hub, a one-stop shop for communication to all stakeholders. They're great for giving feedback that's real time. They're great for assessment, accessibility to resources and the content, more adding resources, putting your schedule out there, your syllabus, a portfolio, all those things you can do with an online platform. Now, there is no way we can talk about these online platforms. That is a whole nother session, and it's probably like a couple of hour session, honestly, if you were going to go through a full training on any one of them. But I will tell you this, when you access this presentation, there are videos down here at the bottom that you can play and learn a little bit more about the 3 that I've highlighted on this slide. Seesaw tends to be one that's used more in the elementary levels. Google Classroom, I've seen it used K-12. Schoology is a very robust platform. It does a lot of things, mostly in the upper elementary and up through high school levels. But you can check that out, and there are others as well, like I mentioned. But that's what I'm talking about with access, okay? So I want you to think about what I just said to you about an online platform as we look at this next slide. The next slide is our next learning outcome. Our next learning outcome is why blend your lessons? Why is it important to do it? So I'm going to give you guys about 30 seconds to look at this slide and digest the 6 reasons why blending your lesson is so important. So just take a couple of minutes to read that, and then I'm going to talk about it a little more. The wait time's always the tough time, right? Whether you're in class or virtually doing a session. Okay, so hopefully you were able to kind of peruse the 6 different reasons why there. And one of the things that struck me in preparation for today was that the slide before this, we talked about learning online platforms. And I can read those items on this why slide, why blend your lessons, and connect almost every single one of those back to what an online platform will do for you. For example, in the top right corner. Accessibility anywhere at any time in multiple ways. If you have that online learning platform, that hub, students can access it wherever they are, and sometimes from their phones. Parents can too. Flexibility, bottom left, for students to replay, reread, rewatch, redo. Online platform, that's where you can house those things so kids can go quickly back to the place to find them, the same place. Students who miss class could stay caught up. Think about substitute teachers too. If they know everything's going to be in that online platform, golly, doesn't that help the learning to continue when a substitute teacher has to be there and you have to be out? The guardians can also see what is being taught. So all of these things can kind of be covered when you're using some type of a management system. Now let's take a look at the top two here. To make class time more enriching, meaningful, and valuable. Now that's a challenge. If you're expecting your online platform, classroom, Schoology, Seesaw, to really be the end all be all to make your kids motivated and engaged to come, that's not going to do it. Because the same thing over and over and over is going to get boring and mundane. That's why I loved all the variety that you guys dropped in the chat earlier of the tools that you're using, because it does take a lot of different things sometimes to keep their attention. But the one thing I would say is you don't have to do a million different things with technology, but just think about the purpose for using the technology more than anything else. And then the next thing, teaching kids how to learn. It's difficult to do that. It really is. But in order to teach kids how to learn, you've got to give them some responsibility. Okay. I hope you guys are doing okay in the chat. Make sure you're asking questions, because I think at the end of this, we're going to have a little bit of time for you to actually ask anything that you may be thinking, okay? So here, let's take a look at the second. I told you guys there were 3 chunks to this that I just have pulled out myself. So the second one is content. So this has to do with the teacher. The delivery method, think about this. The delivery method of the content is just as important as the content itself. We think, oh my goodness, we have all of this stuff to cover. We've got to cover the TEKS. We've got to make sure kids are ready for the test. We've got to read every word of every book that was ever assigned, right? So you're thinking about that in terms of all the things you have to do as a teacher. But a couple of things you can ask yourself is, to start with, what skills do my students need to know and be able to demonstrate? Start there. What learning outcomes? I know they need to know this, and the way I'm going to know they know it is their ability to demonstrate their learning in some way. So I would start there, right? Then the second question would be this, and this is where the true blended learning comes into play, and the student-paced part of the learning and student ownership part of the learning. The next question, what parts of the learning can students complete without direct support? I remember when I was teaching, we always had some vocabulary associated with every unit we taught. I taught English for 11 years, and vocabulary was a big part of it. And a lot of times my teacher teams and I would spend a lot of our time delivering that instruction about vocabulary to the students. But what you have to think is, what can I give to my kids and say, hey, y'all go do this part, so that frees me up to work with smaller groups to make sure that they're understanding what they're supposed to do. So just thinking, what can my kids do on their own independently or with a small group of students that would free me up to help with some of the more the gaps or the deeper issues, right? Okay, so that's content. So content can be delivered through a video, audio format. It could be an article that they're reading. I've included at the top up here, these are all clickable, some options that you could use to deliver content. Some of them are video options. A lot of you guys may have heard of Pear Deck and HyperDocs and Newsella, Edpuzzle, Screencastify. All these things are amazing tools, right? We can't train on all of them, but you can check them out by clicking on those links later. But that's kind of how the teacher would give the watch, the read, the listen, and then the student is going to be doing some practicing and applying. There's got to be something the student has to do and be responsible for. All right, so are you guys ready for me to kind of highlight a couple of these tools? I'm going to highlight 2 of them, okay? Because I want to show you 2 things. I want to show you how these tools can teach kids how to learn and also offer a variety in instructional content and student response. And those are tough to do. Those are tough to pull off. That's why I want to really highlight those now, okay? So to do that, we're going to focus on 2 tools. We're focusing on this amazing Chrome extension called Insert Learning. I don't know if you guys have heard of it before, but if you haven't, I would check it out because it's really, really cool. And I'm going to demonstrate a little bit of that for you in a second. The next tool we're going to talk about is a video repository that you may or may not have ever heard of. It's called, the TKSST stands for The Kids Should See This. And you're going to see in a second why it's called The Kids Should See This. All right. So on the slide, we're going to get to the video and the screenshot of the article in a second. But let me show you this website called The Kids Should See This. All right, I'm going to click on here. And what you're going to find is a curation of videos that are organized by topic. The contributors are teachers, they're educators, and they're kind of creating this curation of a lot of different videos that may or may not be connected to content. They could be in there just as an engagement, or maybe something to serve as a stimulation or stimulant, or a simulation of something. So you can kind of peruse through there and see if there's any video that kind of catches your attention or connects to what you're teaching, and maybe use that as something to kind of engage or hook the kids in. All right, and there's tons of them there. You guys can explore that on your own time. But let me show you what I am going to do with this. The Kids Should See This video. I found this video, this roller coaster video on the Kids Should See This website. And the reason it got my attention was because just recently, one of my colleagues shared this article right here. I don't know if any of you have seen it before, but the title of the article is "Don't Scream and Be Serious. Japan Theme Park Tells Roller Coaster Riders." Okay. Now I'm going to take just a second and I'm going to let this little roller coaster video play for just a few seconds. Okay. I want you to immerse yourself in this roller coaster experience for one little bit. Okay. Okay, we're not going to keep going with that in case some people are really scared of roller coasters, but I love this video. I'm playing it without any sound at all, partly because of the connection, the streaming, but another reason is because of the title of this article, "Don't Scream and Be Serious." So let's take a look at this article real quick and see what they're talking about here. So in light of COVID-19, the theme parks have started opening back up, but they're giving some, restrictions and parameters of the people who come there and ride these rides. And this Japan theme park, they're telling roller coaster riders, guys, don't scream. Keep your mask on. And we know this is a really scary and kind of a crazy ride, but we would like you to scream inside your heart. Do you guys see where that's highlighted right there on that article? Scream inside your heart. Like, what does that mean? Scream inside your heart. Now, let me show you something. I'm trying to make a connection between this roller coaster video and this article, and also pulling in this tool called Insert Learning, this Chrome extension. If you use this Chrome extension with any article on the web, you can make an article interactive, an interactive lesson for your students that can connect to any kind of content. So what I've done here is I've already activated Insert Learning on this article, and I've gone over here to the little toolbar at the side and added a little bit of a comment or question, and I can post that, and I can even create classes within Insert Learning and assign this question to classes. So they would get the link to the article, but the article would have all of these different interactive activities already built into it. So it's really, really cool. And you can kind of explore on your own after you install it, the different things you can do. But this is a highlighter tool. You can add a sticky note on the page. You can add a question on the page that they have to answer, or do like a speech bubble type of a thing like I did here. And if I click on the IL here in the toolbar, when I click that, it'll allow me to assign it. And I can sign it a couple of different ways. Through Google Classroom, if I use that online platform, through Teams, or I can just grab the link and I can share the link through another online platform or through an email or something like that. So insert learning is a way that you can make an article kind of come to life and make it more dynamic. You could also create these question prompts that allow students to kind of ask their own questions or make their own inferences. So I just wanted to show you guys that tool. If you've heard of or used insert learning before, we'd love to know that in the chat. I would love to know who's used it and maybe how you've used it. And I might not be able to see it or talk about it, but you're sharing with the people in this room, and they're all going to get lots of things from your share as well. Okay, so let's move on, because we've got a lot to do, but a short time to do it, right? Okay, so that takes us to our third piece of the three chunks. Now we've got to have like a student way to respond. Insert learning does provide a way for kids to respond. But let's take a look at what responses should tell us as instructors. When we have students respond, it's for a reason. We want to see where their gaps are. We want to see if they've mastered the content. We really do. We would also like to see that they've developed some type of love or passion for what they've learned. I mean, that's the big goal, I think, is to get kids to really love learning. So we're going to use, as instructors, pre-informative assessments to give constructive and timely feedback, and to also inform next steps for instruction and learning. So when I say that, let me reiterate something. Do you see how these tools at the bottom, they're all linked, by the way. You can click on them and find more information about them. Those tools at the bottom are divided out into two categories. All the ones to the left side of the little dotted line, I would say are great for formative assessment. They're great formative assessment tools. They're not really creation tools, although you probably could manipulate them to be creation tools in some way. But their main purpose is for the teacher to get some type of formative data to use to find out where the students are, right, in the learning process. So while a lot of these are very engaging, Flipgrid's engaging, GimKit is certainly engaging, Kahoot, all of those, super engaging tools. If you as the teacher use them without purpose, you can use them for engagement, that's a purpose, but you need to also be intentional about using the data you get from those tools to help the students who have gaps. So use those tools to help you determine who has the gaps. The second part of this is you can also see from using those formative assessment tools who needs more practice, who needs some time, some small group time with the teacher, some teacher-led small group time. And then from that formative assessment, you can see who's ready in the class to move on. Y'all, not all of your kids need to have the entire lesson all at the same time. Some of them know some of that content already. And if you don't use pre-assessments in your classroom, that might be something that you consider when you're introducing a new unit or lesson, because pre-assessment is going to tell you a lot about where the students are when they come in. Kind of like those KWLs. What do you know? What do you want to know? And what did you learn? Kind of like that. But the students who are ready to move on, they can do some independent things, or they can do some interdependent, where they're in a small group working independently, interdependently with someone else, or collaboratively. They could be in the creation phase, which is the right side of the dotted line. They could be making things to demonstrate what they know. They could be making a movie. They can make a podcast. That's what the synth icon is. That's a very safe teacher managed or monitored podcast application. They can make infographics and presentations use all the Google, all the G Suite tools. You can have choice boards for them where they could choose how they want to show their learning, choose what they want to do next, all those kinds of things. So these are just some different ways students can respond along the way. But you always want everything you give as a teacher, the students should be responding, and you should be using their response to inform what you're going to do next, the next steps. All right, so I'm going to kind of run through these next two really quick, but I hope that you will get something from these next two slides, and then we're going to get to the end and kind of start to close it out. But when you're thinking about feedback for students, sometimes it's hard. You think, man, God, it's too difficult to give feedback, especially for secondary and you're teaching 180 kids, right? Giving feedback to every kid. And that's how technology can really help us. I saw a few of you mention Google Slides in the chat as your go-to tool. And that's my favorite as well. You can do like all kinds of things in Google Slides. And just to kind of show you right here, I'm going to escape so you can kind of see something really fast. On this particular slide, we've got 4 different, it's actually 5 if you count the Bitmoji separate from emoji, 4 different ways that you can give feedback to students. You can give them audio feedback, video feedback, emojis and Bitmojis are great for feedback. You can give them some digital stickers for feedback. So these 4 icons right here that I'm clicking on, these are clickable and they are Chrome extensions. You can add these Chrome extensions up in your Chrome browser and then create feedback for audio, video, Bitmojis or emojis, and even GIFs. We say GIF, Flippin' Good Tech. Some people say GIFs. But let me just demonstrate one of them for you. So I have this Jiffy for Chrome installed. So I can go up to Jiffy up here. And if I want to give my student, maybe they did something in a Google slide or wherever on their homework, I can click on that Jiffy Chrome extension at the top and I can search. And guys, I'm just going to tell you this, you obviously be school appropriate when you're searching for these things, but I can just search for something that might be kind of relevant and I can just grab that, right? I click on it and I can either copy the link or I can just drag it and drop it where I need it to go. So if you've got a student and they did a great job on there, throw a GIF to the side of their Google slide where they did their work to kind of spice up the feedback. That's just one great tool that you can use right there. And you guys can explore the other ones. Mote's cool. You can record a video straight into Google Slides with record to slides. And then I think we guys are all familiar with Bitmoji and emoji. And some of these we talked about in our first session of the day, well, our second session, the top 10 Google Chrome extensions. So if you want to go back and look at our session resources for that, you'll see how to install those extensions. Okay, the next one I want to talk about, and then we're going to kind of wind down here because we're getting close to time, is podcasting. I told you guys that my colleague and I, we have a podcast that we do on the side. It's a passion project. And podcasting is so awesome for so many reasons. And I'm not going to play this video because of time. And also, I don't know how the sound's going to come across to you. But you can go back and take a look at this video. Matt Miller from Ditch That Textbook gives a review of this particular application called Synth, because it is the educator's answer to podcasting with kids. It's safe. The teacher can create classes within Synth and have students be a part of those classes and create their own little synths, their own little podcast bites. And there are 7 ways on this slide that you could use Synth with K-12 students. They could do audio exit tickets, reflections to synthesize what they've learned, present their evidence of thinking, practice language, like if they're learning a foreign language, audio instructions, interview their class and people outside the class, or create an actual podcast. And what a cool thing it would be to take all these little synths that the students make in the class to create one class podcast, or a podcast of resources even that they could go back to. So check out Synth when you get a second. Okay, I told you guys this was a lot of stuff, so I'm hoping that you're taking some notes, that you're listening, and you also can go back to this slides presentation later and sort of kind of absorb the material a little more and process it. But remember, you don't have to do everything. So if something gets your attention, just grab a hold of that one thing and say, I think I'm going to try that next. Then go back, kind of like a buffet, go back and try something else, okay? So this slide right here, if you're kind of interested in how could I even set up group work with students, I've never really done that before. This slide will give you 4 ways to establish group work and the reason why you would do it. Some ways that you would do the group work, those 4 ways, with small groups, online learning, and collaborative projects. The next slide is going to give you some practical time management tips. If you have not used Classroom Screen in your life, you need to, that's a clickable too, that Classroom Screen, it's actually linked. You can click on this and it'll take you to Classroom Screen. It is the best time management tool I've ever seen. Check it out on your, I wish I could show you, there's just really no time. Classroom Q is another great tool where students can ask you questions without asking you questions. They can do it digitally, and while you're helping someone else, if they've got a question, they can write their question and it'll go to a queue, and then the teacher can answer it digitally without even saying a word. And then there are some other tips, having some office hours for your remote learners, teaching your kids to self-monitor their own progress so that you don't feel like you're doing it all. Have some next steps in place for those early finishers so they can know, okay, this is what I can work on next. And this one, gosh, y'all need to write this down. You don't have to grade everything, and I know you think you do. So what you have to think of, I'm purposeful about what I have my students do. So if I give them something to do, there's a purpose for it. The grade, although we have to do that, right? Grade's not the end goal. The mastery is the end goal. So in order to get my students to mastery, I've got to look at those formative assessments, and I've got to actually use the data from those formative assessments to plan the instruction, the next steps for the instruction. But that doesn't always constitute grading at all, okay? And you have those conversations with kids and parents. Sometimes these aren't graded. Sometimes I'm using them to help you be better, right? And I didn't talk about the first one. Some of you guys have heard of this strategy. When a teacher's working with small groups, especially, and you've got those students that are like, I have a question. What are we supposed to do? I wasn't listening, kind of a thing. You can give them this expectation that after you've given the instruction and given them a place to go back and find more information about it, they can ask 3 other people in the class, and that may be Google as well, before they ask you, okay? And that's a really good rule of thumb for small groups. This next slide, I came across this video recently because some of you guys mentioned that, oh, Synthesis free. I'm sure I saw that question. Synthesis free, and you can use the free version. There's a premium paid version for almost everything out there, but you can use the free version without skipping a beat with it, okay? And all right, so on this slide right here, a lot of you guys, I noticed you said engagement and motivation was a really big struggle for you, a big challenge. So I encourage you to go back to this slide and watch this guy's little short video, but I listed the things he mentions here. He says when you're doing a virtual learning with students, let a student monitor the mute button. Let them kind of be your co-teacher, right? You got to be really selective about who you pick to do that, right? But that's one way you can kind of keep some of the kids more engaged, give them some type of job, and we've heard that before, using it in the face-to-face. Have a student host a virtual class for 5 to 10 minutes. I love this one. Why not have a student come in and let them kick off the class virtually and sort of host it, and then you come in a little bit, but man, talk about ownership of learning. I bet that student would be way more prepared for class if they had to host the first 5 to 10 minutes. Having one-to-one screen time with a teacher and a guest, maybe you get a special invite. We're going to just have a powwow with you, and you bring a friend. Maybe it's a parent, or maybe it's a friend in another class. And we can talk about what you're doing or what you're struggling with or what you've done really great. Student teach a TikTok dance. I love that too. All the kids are about TikTok. Maybe you take some time and have the kids just get up there and teach a new dance. And there are a few more. One of my elementary teacher friends, and I worked with her a long time in my former district, she does a thing with her second graders called teacher mail. Sometimes she doesn't have time to, like, because the little guys, they always want to share, and there's no time for them to share. So she created teacher mail. And if they have something they want to share with her, they write her a letter. And it's so cute. And she gets this mail from them, and then she'll write them back. And it's just real cute for the younger grades. So the next part of this is just a lot of yes buts, because I know you have some and we all have, okay? And I can't read through them all because I just don't have the time. We've got 5 minutes left. But you can go through that, because some of the yes buts you are thinking right now, we have thought too. So I've given a yes but, and then in the orange, there's a response to how maybe you could handle that yes but. And if I could stress one thing in this whole presentation, y'all have a lot of work to do. Everybody does, right? We're overwhelmed, really. But here's my mantra: don't sacrifice the relationship with those students for the work. The relationship is the most important thing. And if you can have and build a relationship with those kids, the work's going to happen. It's going to get there, and you're going to be so much less frustrated. And I'm going to end with this and turn it back over to the host and co-host. But we have that podcast I mentioned, and we always interview pretty renowned educational technology gurus on our podcast. And we've interviewed Josh from GimKit. He's 19 years old, and he started making GimKit when he was a sophomore in high school. We've interviewed him twice on our show. He's an amazing guy. So you can check out our podcast at flippinggoodtech.com. But we want some teacher guests on our podcast. That's the thing we're missing. So if you've heard something today in one of our sessions that you're like, I'm going to try that with my kids, I'm going to see if it works, I'm going to try it, and you're like, and I think I want to go on their show, possibly go on there and talk to them about what I did, we would love to see how it's working for you. So you can go to that link and fill out our form, and maybe you'll get the opportunity, we will get the opportunity actually, to interview you as a guest on our show. And that's it, Josh. I think we're right on time.
Yes, you have like 2 minutes, so
Okay.
you went down to the wire. So
Down to the wire.
hold on. There we go. If you will notice at the bottom of your screen, we have the super secret password of Empower. That is capital EMPOWER, Empower. And we also added the link for to be a guest in the chat. So if you grab that real quick, because as soon as I click in broadcast, all that information goes. We can pull it up like Monday in our meeting, but it's gone for y'all. So thank you for taking part. Miss Salinas, did you have anything she didn't mention? Because I know she answered some of the questions that were popping out.
Missy was asking, is Synth a free or premium tool?
Yeah, it has a free version. You can do, I think, everything you would ever need to do with the free version. I think most things have paid versions, but I wouldn't even go there unless you absolutely wanted to. I think you could do everything with free. And I appreciate the comments in the chat. And I will say this to add to what Josh said about the links. When we have one more session after this, it's Polaroid Notes. That's the final one we're doing today. It's an awesome one too. But all of the links for everything we're sharing are going to be in the Sked app by the end of that 3 o'clock session. So about around 4:15, if you go back to the app, the conference app, you're going to see the links to all that. And I also plan on emailing the people that registered or were in attendance, emailing you guys with all the links too. So you'll be getting it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So, thank you very much, Elizabeth. We appreciate all the good information. I scribbled all over my paper over here.
Okay.
I'm going to be checking out Synth myself.
Awesome.
So, Leah, anything to wrap it up?
No, just everybody's thanking you for such a great session. I think everybody's processing all of it, all of the information.
It's a lot. This is
Yes.
not a 45-minute session to really dive deep. So I appreciate your patience, guys, and letting it kind of soak in. But let it marinate a bit. Go back to it. And I said earlier, start small and just pick one or two things, and then just keep going back and just to that buffet and keep adding more. Okay.
Okie dokie. Well, goodbye, everybody. And thank you very much. We appreciate it. We'll see you in 10 minutes.
Awesome.